How y'all doing? To this episode, we're going to do Book of Beginnings, and this one is mostly talking about creation myths, how things began, to various myths and legends. I will admit, looking through this book again, it's kind of hard. I can always show the artwork. There isn't too many captions made of the artwork in this. It's sort of set up differently than, and another thing goes with a Fall of Camelot, but we'll get to that in time. But wonderful cover here shows a lion giving a fox his tail, and it talks a little bit about that in a little short view. So let's go over this book and see how it is. Again, we'll go with the beginning pictures involved. Here we just have an egg, and of course when you talk about Book of Beginnings there, you can see where this is going. And well, it starts to crack a little. And right now, sorry, they put it on a corner here. And here on this one, it starts to have smoke or mist coming out of it. And of course, we skip all the way to the end with all these. And it's just left open. Of course, this Book of Beginnings there, some of you may have already figured out, like the many mythologies said that the universe cracked out of an egg. So the first chapter here is Out of Chaos. Talking about, various forms of creation myths. Like, it talks about here when, in a situation where people are in homes and the elders answer the questions of the young ones of how it all began. So, examples like this. And here we got this one picture here. I always admired this one. It was very beautiful. Let's see if I can put it out of glare. You have this one, a beautiful woman there looking over a palace above the clouds, and Aurora Borealis on top here. Now, again, I'm sorry about the glare. I'm trying to get the whole picture in. My lighting sucks, as I don't have any means to sort of counter it. But we're focusing here. I'll read the caption in the upper corner here on the air page. Before the beginning of time, a goddess looked down from the galleries of her windswept palace, high in the kingdom of the air. She searched the clouds for a glimpse of the mysterious world below, not knowing that she herself was fated to play a part in its creation. So, yeah. So as we're moving on, sorry, these are kind of cryptic. More cryptic than usual. Here I have a picture. There's a naked. Nude woman out in the ocean, looks kind of pregnant. Kind of pregnant, yeah, most likely is, because it's a creation myth, and I don't care. It has to do with the bird here. The caption on the top reads, let me get that position. Waiting to bear the child begotten upon her by the wind and the waves together, the water mother floated in a shoreless sea. For centuries she drifted alone, until a teal from a place unknown flew out of the sky, looking for a nesting place. So, I also found out when looking through this book, not all these stories are associated directly to a culture in particular. At least none that I can instantly find. Bird, celestial, terrestrial paradise. Going to talk about creations where some of it is talking about a woman giving birth to the world, where in some cases, like in China, like the Chinese, as what this story goes, you see a giant there with his arms holding up everything. Captured above. Born in chaos, a giant Panku separated earth from heaven. When he died, his body nourished the world, and his blood flowed into the seas. So, yeah, there you go there. Sometimes there's a guy to create the world. Of course, in Norse mythology, the world was created by Ymir, a frost giant. But that's another story. And this one I always found a weird picture at first. I thought that there was this lady with the head of a, that's sitting on, whose dress is covering the head of a dragon, but no, that ends up being her tail. Caption reads, Dragon Tail Goddess Nu Kuya gave Earth its first human inhabitants. She sculpted their bodies from clay, infused them with life, and taught them how to love. That was nice of her. Of course, on the bottom here, you can see a little clay statue. Of course, also an Asian myth. You see a guy there who's on writing and putting some writings and markings on the ground. I'll put it more to where you focus on him. I'll read the caption. The god Fu Si imparted skills to the new worldlings that would enable them to survive and prosper. He taught them how to make nets for fishing, invented an alphabet for their use, and instructed them the art of writing. And again, it was also nice of him to do that. First fruit, nice little still life picture, except, you know, I think it has something to do, blue-green hills of Burma, you know, a tale involving Nat, and of course that's in the main text, and try not to read that for these videos. It's supposed to show the art and to be interested through the captions here. And here we have a woman who has, she's not sleeping beauty. This is a woman who has died and is on, you know, as near the roots of a tree. Captioned above: in the land above the heavens, a woman of royal blood, sickened with an illness that feigned death itself, was placed in the grave within the roots of the sacred tree, and her departure from one world signaled her entrance into another. Also on the very top here it says, "Follow the Sky Maiden." This is also very unusual about this volume, is that they actually put titles to the stories, where normally you start with one chapter and you continue on through one story through another into a regular narrative, but here they sort of separate them in this one. So here we have that woman. Looks like she's carried down by a flock of birds. The caption above says, "When a woman fell out of the land above the sky, and our world was nothing but air and water, the birds that were its chief inhabitants came to her rescue and caught her in their wings." So again, you know, probably have to read the main text to get the full context of the story. And this one, you know, I'm surprised people don't have a poster of this one. This, you know, this is kind of interesting. Lovely artwork on, you know, how they made the turtle and all that. On the other page, it talks perched precariously on the back of a giant turtle. The sky woman and the creatures that had descended with her floated in an endless sea, unsure of survival. Of course, that's not the kind of turtle that would swim in the sea, you know. But, you know, mythology and all that. There's a little frog there. Talks about probably in relation to the story, you know, to the story there. But here we go on with these side stories here. I'll read these. These are short little ones. The Trembling Earth. Let me see if I can position this. Yes, that is a man there with dreadlocks, and of course, if you look closely in his hair, you see giraffes, lions, gazelles, and people, and elephants, and eyes sticking out. Let me read the context. You know, position that to where less glare. Probably best I can do. Let me read. The Trembling Earth. Whenever the ground quaked and trembled, demolishing houses, uprooting trees, and causing great abysses to open, it served as a reminder of the Earth's precarious position, for ancient lore made it plain that the world did not rest on firm foundations. Some African storytellers said that all life sprouted from the head of a living giant. Trees, flowers, and grasses grew in his hair, and people and animals were the parasites crawling on his scalp. Earthquakes occur whenever the giant sneezed and twitched or turned his head too suddenly. Elsewhere, it was thought that the foul-tempered giant bore the earth on his back and sometimes fell to fighting with an equally enormous brother, who themselves were brothers, who themselves may have carried planets on their backs. Yet some wise elders insisted that the giant was more affectionate in nature. When he and his wife embraced, they did so with such vigor that the whole world quaked with their passion. Okay. So next time you have an earthquake here, that's just the earth getting it on. Now imagine having that in your hair instead of lice. That would be a whole different social experience, I'll tell you that. But other aspects of, you know, here we have a pig next to a tree with other pigs on it. Let's see, but the hog's itch. Let's see, position that. Perched precariously in a vulnerable place on the Earth's unsteady crust, the South Sea Islanders looked to their storytellers for reassurance when the mountains cracked and the Earth swayed under them. In the Celebes, they believe quakes occur because the world rested on the bristling back of a giant hog. When an itch spread down its spine, it rubbed its back on a rough bark palm tree growing in a cosmic grove that was far too massive for ordinary mortals to comprehend. The world heaved and rolled. Any subterranean rumbling that accompanied these tremors was the sound of the hog itself, grunting with satisfaction that the itch had at last been scratched. And in this story there, with the frog on its back, with the artwork done by Wayne Anderson of Flight of Dragons fame. Now, a restless frog. In Mongolia, wise elders had their own explanation for tremors that disturbed the broad expanses of their homeland and rattled the frames of their round felt yurts that they lived in. They described a great frog that balanced the world on its back. Sometimes a shiver ran under its smooth green skin, and its muscles, longing for a jump, twitched and trembled, slipping from one side of its slimy back to the other, the earthquake. It was fervently hoped by all mortals that the creature would control its restless impulses and never take it into its head to leap into the air or dive into the water of the pond. If it ever did, the result would be too catastrophic to contemplate. Such things we make up when we lack information. I just always like this picture right here. Again, sorry for the glare. And this is Typhoon. Defeated in a cosmic battle, the monster Typhoon was imprisoned in Sicily's Mount Etna. Whenever he grew restless, the mountain rumbled and sent out streams of molten lava. Fiery layers of the gods, as is written up here. Yeah. Now, I won't read this one, but I'll go over the artwork as you may. Phaeton's Folly. Don't recall this one, but I remember seeing these pictures a lot, where apparently Phaeton takes a hold of a chariot. Yes. The god of Helios. Let's see. He had never known his father, but his mother claimed that he is a child of the sun god himself, which is Helios. And so this is apparently he took Helios' chariot across the heavens. And again, I love the artwork in this. Of course, he didn't have much control of it, so eventually he fell off. So it's a tragedy. But some of you may already know the story if you know Greek mythology, and this is just a good telling of it right here. Chapter 2, Celestial Lore. These are now again, this is what I was talking about in this book, where they talk about, there's not captures to everything, so I don't know what this is referring to. I kind of tried to read a little bit of this, and it just talks about the great serpent. It doesn't talk too directly about which culture that came from. So you have to fully read the text in order to get this. And here we have an interesting little picture of, they call it tiger, even though it doesn't look much stripe. And it is guarding this hut with these two kids. The title of this up here is The Twin Luminance, I guess, for sun and Earth, sun and moon, celestial orbs. This is a Korean legend. And here we get this pretty little picture of the two kids up in the air and looking down the pool, which the reflections distracted the tiger from attacking him. In the darkest of all ages, when no sun or moon hung in the heavens, two children fled the ravaging jaws of the tiger, dreaded creature of the night. Taking refuge in the sky, they brought light to the world. And here we have the pictures of the two kids. You have looks like a young girl representing the sun, or a little boy talking to the moon. At least I think it is. It could be just different phases of the moon. This picture, again, Wayne Anderson here. The text at the top here, it says, the light eaters. Whenever the sun hid behind a veil, or the moon suddenly vanished from the cloudless sky, and the people of the old world trembled, they knew eclipses were caused by the hungry monsters who perpetually stalked the celestial bodies. A howling wolf from the Scandinavian spruce forest, a sinuous Chinese dragon, a giant fish from the magical bestiary of the Jews. Sometimes, when one of these creatures sprang at its prey and took a bite, the sun went dark. The sky went dark. I'm sorry, I'm not a perfect reader. Then everyone knew what had to be done. They screamed, shouted, prayed, banged drums, and set off fireworks. Anything would frighten the predators away. Thanks to the valiant efforts, the sun or moon would soon reappear unscathed in the sky. The fractured moon. I think this picture is, let's see, it captures, at first the moon was merely a lamp hanging in the oak. Lured by its light, the secretive others, dwarves, elves, and their troglodytic ilk, emerged from their hiding places to dance until dawn. I didn't read the full story of this, so I guess it's talking about, you know, how the phases of the moon came about. Little, you know, drawings right here. It's hard to get a good view of that. But here, little macabre scene. You know, couple people coming out of coffins, mostly, you know, skeletal-like. Couple people playing some instruments. When the four men who owned the moon reached the ends of their mortal spans, each took his quarter share with him to the underworld. There, the gleaming orb, reassembled, woke the dead and set them celebrating. Alright. Lunar denizens. Not sure what this is all about here. I didn't pre-read the story here, but you know, the artwork is kind of bordered with a rabbit going across a field, with the moon in the sky becoming more full. Same between two children, you know, as follows: a guy with gathering sticks, and on the top here shows a rabbit getting out of the box, and then the image of the box shows a fully, you know, fully waxing moon. Here we go. Nice, beautiful picture of a woman in the sky. Let's see. I'll read the little text on here. Lindu's astral veil. The bards of Estonia told a sad tale of the goddess named Lindu, daughter of Ukko, who was the king of the heavens. Lindu was a sovereign in her own right, queen of birds. She lived on the shores of the Baltic Sea among her winged subjects. In every season she knew where each bird belonged and made certain that they kept to the right paths as they migrated across the sky. Many suitors came down from the heavens to woo her. Lindu rejected the sun and then the moon, finding them altogether too predictable. Every day they followed the same course through the heavens. She dismissed the pole star as too set in his ways, never leaving his post in the sky. But when she was courted by the northern lights, she was so enthralled with his beauty and his splendor that she fell in love at once. The northern lights could not stand the brightness of days for long, so after they were betrothed, he returned to the land of midnight, promising to return for the wedding. Lindu happily prepared for her marriage, but the northern lights proved himself as inconsistent as he was beautiful. He never came back. Day after day, Lindu grew sadder and sadder until her wedding dress was soaked with tears. She wept in the meadows, heedless of the fluttering birds that gathered around her. Ukko looked down from his palace in the heavens and took pity on his daughter. He commanded the winds to take her away from the earth and place her near him in the sky. Once there, her wedding veil blew out behind her, and its threads were turned into a million glistening stars, their lights forming the night pathway called the Milky Way. She continued to watch over the migrating birds, said the storytellers. Sometimes, on a winter's evening, she glimpsed the elusive northern lights, but the old grief was forgotten, and she wondered why she had ever loved him. Tragic indeed. Hieroglyphics of the Heavens, the name of this section right here. Talking about the Greeks, talking about the constellations, it assumes. But but this picture right here, I've always kind of found a bunch of sea stars coming out from the sky from originally the stars. Let me read this one. The future of the stars. In New Guinea, legend tells of the time when the stars lived on Earth. They were shy creatures and kept themselves well hidden from the eyes of men. In the deepest jungles, far from human habitation, they canoed along rivers overhung by creepers and branches. They wore glistening decorations of curving white boar's teeth and gleaming shells. And the glow given off by these ornamentations wavered rhythmically in unison with the haunting songs and stars sang by as they paddled. One night, a traveler lost in the forest saw the shimmering lights and heard the mysterious music. Fired with curiosity, he approached the source of these marvels and peered from behind to a curtain of vines. He was nearly blinded by the magnificence he saw before him in the waters of the river. Perhaps he was greedy. Perhaps he merely longed to hold such beauty in his hands. But on an impulse, he reached out from his hiding place and touched one of the canoes. Frightened, the stars escaped, took refuge in the skies, and never returned. Their glorious brilliance was still visible from Earth every night, but their songs never again charmed human ears. It's kind of cute. Constellation Draco, flung into the air by angry goddess, the dragon stuck fast to the roof of heavens. 15 stars mapped out the sinuous coils and outstretched tail. And of course, many of you are familiar with this one. Looks like Perseus. Perseus slew the ghastly Medusa, whose gaze turned her victims into stone. In Hero's stellar outline, he still carried a monster's head. But even in death, she was dangerous, and the brightest stars in the whole configuration was said to be her lethal staring eyes. Ought to look for that. Let's see. Cassiopeia, queen of Ethiopia, sat in state in the sky, still on her regal throne. But the pride that was her gravest sin in life was punished after death. For her constellation spent half of every night turned upside down, reminding the world that even royalty was not exempt from comeuppance. Interesting drawings here, kind of a little minimalistic here. The bottom here tells what's going on. Dark dramas of the firmament. I'll go ahead and read this one. The ancients knew full well that the sky's changes and the caprices of the weather were the handiwork of gods, demons, or other supernatural beings. Look upward, they said, and you will see games and rites and dramas. So it was that year after year, when American Indians were resting from the hunt by their campfires, they observed the astral chase of the great bear in the northern skies. Throughout the spring, the 3 hunters in the guise of single stars stalked the celestial beast, who wandered the heavens unawares. By summer, the constellations spun about the polar skies, for the quarry had scented its pursuers, and the chase was on in earnest. The hunters' arrows found their mark in autumn. As the great bear's blood flowed, it washed the trees with crimson. The blood-stained leaves dropped from their branches in mourning, and the year died with the bear. Its soul rested through the winter, only to be reborn the next spring. Nicely poetic. Not much can be seen out of this picture. You kind of see a little facial marks here and there. You know, the long winter months were in a time of darkness for the Eskimo tribes of the northern wastes. The sun glimmered for only a few hours each day. Game was scarce, the sea was frozen, and death was always near. Yet, in the dusky gloom that hung over the ice fields, even in the middle of the day, the skies would sometimes glow with the shifting colors of the northern lights. The Naskapi Indians saw in those strange and beautiful lights that shone from the top of the world, leaping prism-like across the snow-covered tundra, a sign of life beyond death. The world of the dead was a land of opposites, a mirror image of the earth where spirits walked upside down and cavorted on their heads. The Aurora Borealis was the window through which the living could watch the dead at play. Just as the tribesmen danced around their campfires after the hunt, so the souls of the departed danced in the heavens, casting their ethereal lights into the dark face of the world. This is a very haunting one. It's sort of a mean-spirited creature holding the head of someone. Another view of the afterlife prevailed in the windswept steppes of Siberia, where the spirits of the dead sought an unnatural return to life. When it was thought of the dead souls were reborn as celestial vampires, thirsty for the human blood which alone could warm and sustain them, the vampires lurked high up in the sky among the stars, waiting for cold, clear nights when they fell as meteors upon the silent earth, to drink from the veins of the slumbering nomads. But vigilant folk, watching the inky heavens, had the power to destroy the vampires before they landed. The bloodsuckers were terrified by the sight of wakeful humans. Shaken off their deadly course, the shooting star fell harmlessly to earth somewhere beyond the horizon, where their awful shrieks resounded in the emptiness. Here's the celestial-looking sky. Looks like a cloak or blanket up above. Hunchback, Hook-Tooth, Mother Hole, or Holly, ancient goddess of the sky and the wind, queen of witches and elves, stumped about the mountains and meadows of Germany with her cat and her crutch, perhaps in search for search of her sacred herb, hellebore. Mortals lived in constant fear of meeting her, for she could strike the sight from any man's eyes or the very reason from his brain. She can shrink or swell at will, appearing sometimes as a goblin, or other times as a giantess. Her pleasures, though, were homely. She liked the light of warming fire and sat spinning by the hearth. She sent gifts of gold to mortal women who tended their houses well, and when winter snows flurried outside their windows, the women peered up into the clouds, and took for Mother Holy, shaking out her feather bed. This one you have sort of a almost seems like a spirit in a dark sky with a cup pouring out a rainbow. The Shans, dwellers of the Burmese mountains, worship a pantheon of divinities, gods of the sun, the moon, the clouds, the air. The sun, the moon, and the stars were the golden palaces of these deities. When they visited Earth, they made their home on Mount Meru, which itself rested on the back of a giant fish. Human in their appearance, passions, and follies, these deities ruled all the spectacles of the wind and weather seen on Earth. The Shans could always tell where the gods had been revealing at the banquet in their home atop the sacred Mount Meru, as they feast on succulent meats and luscious fruits. Servants continually filled their cups with celestial wine. In their gaiety, the gods overturned their goblets, spilling wine down through the clouds, and leaving behind a vivid trail of color, a rainbow. Rainbows are just when the gods knock out their drinks. And here, this picture, again, sorry for the glare, it's hard to see. It's sort of within the clouds, you see sort of a bird. There's the beak and there's the wings. Wish I had a better setup. Sorry about that, folks, but I'll position best I can. Let me read. Dragons, ogres, and monstrous birds guard the slopes of the Shan's divine peak, Mount Meru. While sweet waters washed its shores in certain seasons, the nymphs who made their home in the waters were drawn up onto beaches glistening with gold, silver, and myriad gems to dance and play with one another, bathing in the hearts of lotus leaves and splashing in the shallows. Lusting after such beauties, the ogres left their post to join the nymphs and immediately grew jealous of each other. They fought, seeming to set the mountains ablaze with a flash of swords and shields, mistaking those flashing lights for a conflagration. The king of the dragons splayed the slopes with water from his mouths. The lord of the great birds, thinking that the sacred mountain was flooded, beat the air with his terrible wings to drive the water back. The wind had swirled from his wing tips, swept down the mountainside, and all these events together made a hurricane. This is a picture where not much, just sort of cloudy with some red birds onto it. Storms over Africa were the work of the god Kayura. When he wished to create a tempest, he tossed his flock of red feathered birds down into the clouds. The storm birds flew like arrows loose from heaven, their glittering plumage flashed with lightning. The thunder echoed in the flapping of the wings. Sometimes the lightning birds, struck the earth and buried themselves in the ground, never to emerge again. The heaven doctors of Natal, tribal wizards, knew how to catch the storm birds by luring it to them with a bowl of food. Once they had succeeded in capturing one of the storm god's feathered minions, they could conjure tempests into the clear blue sky themselves. Over the fire, they rendered the birds fat and dipped the ends of their wands in it to summon a thunderstorm at will. 3. The dance of life. It's kind of a thick, majestic jungle and all that, very beautiful. The primal potter is what it states over here. You see a picture of a wolf creature attacking a horse with these beings behind it. I think this is a story from India, but again, I'm not going to read the text. But cool picture of a bear there. And we got this one of a camel. I'll read this capture. The braggart's bungle. Long before the days of Genghis Khan, the graceful horse and the oddly shaped camel lived side by side in the cold Mongolian plains. The nomad tribes told a story explaining how the two flat-footed beasts came to be so different. The creator, they said, made the Asiatic horse and gave it a neck that arched in an elegant curve. But Burkett Khan, who may have been a rival god or a demon, was jealous. He tried to create an even more beautiful animal, all thumbs, and forced the back of the hump in it, and put the neck on upside down. Let's see, whether Burkett Khan thought this creature handsome, no one knows, for he was never seen again. So a camel is just a misshapen horse. Of course, the very top here talks about a tale of many tales, which sort of relates to the story on the front cover here about the lion who gave the tales to all the animals. In the beginning, only the lion, star of all the animals, possessed a tale of his own. But in an act of royal largesse, he summoned his subjects to his summer palace and provided tales for all. Well, that was nice of him. Yes, how the elephant lost its wings. In the beginning, said the wise men of India, elephants could fly. But through an unhappy accident, they lost their wings and became earthbound. It happened this way. An elephant flying over the hot countryside spotted a particularly cool and tempting pond. Descending rapidly from the great height, it crash-landed the reedy banks. The impact shook the ground and muddied the waters and disturbed an enormous crocodile from its sleep. While the elephant noisily slaked its thirst, the crocodile attacked. The elephant tried to fly away, but one of its wings was clamped in the crocodile's jaws. It is said that the elephant and the crocodile then fought for 12 years and 13 ages before the elephant. Both the wings were now gone and its hide slashed to ribbons. Called upon the great god Bhagavan for help. Now let me get that glare out. Seeing that the elephant was merely drowned, Bhagavan reached out to heaven, grasped the beast by the nose with one hand, and pulled. In those days, the elephant's nose was small. As Bhagavan pulled, the nose stretched, but the elephant did not rise. So Bhagavan took hold of the elephant's ears and both hands and gave him a mighty tug and flattened and widened them, yanked a great weight from the pond. The elephant soon got used to its new shape and a life without wings. And people in that part of India were particularly pleased, for they were tired of the low-flying elephants crashing into their cowsheds. I would think the excrement would also be just as much of a pain. Here we got a picture of Inuit people living in an igloo here, but if you notice a silhouette, it's of a polar bear. Caption says, a great ice bear, bringer of death, hovered into the shadows of an endless winter night. It sought and often found vengeance against the hunters who plagued it. Moving on. Bird over fire with the caption reading, by fanning the flames of a watchfire, a robin kept 2 human sleepers safe from the enemy that stalked them. But in this act of kindness, the bird singed its feathers and bore a red mark on its breast forever afterwards. So now we know how the robin got its red mark on its chest. At least back in the old days. A feathered heraldry. Various birds right here with their own smaller capture, than normal. Like this one right here. Arab scribes said that the hoopoe once wore a crown of real gold as a gift from Solomon. Here we got a bird upside down, looks like it's falling. The woodpecker's red cap marked an ancient wound inflicted by the devil. And on here we got the peacock. Peacock's delight displaying its gorgeous plumage made it a symbol of vanity, yet nature gave the bird its own comeuppance by underpinning this glory with a pair of ugly feet. Which, it's not really drawn as ugly, it's just, drawn like, any other bird. The fox and the fishes. I'm not going to read this one, it's a bit lengthy here. Not that it's not me a few other times, but I have to skip a couple of these, so just so you could probably encourage to find more. You want to find out? Just pick up the book. You can find them quickly on Amazon. Let's see, we got a picture here of a group of men turning into frogs. The woman on the top here carrying a child. And the caption reads, seeking to quench her thirst in a pond, the goddess Leto was abused by hostile peasants who muddied the water before she could drink it. In her wrath, she punished them for their cruel inhospitality by turning them into frogs. Well, that'll learn you. a glorious Genesis. No caption here, but an interesting picture. Some legend involving China, and this guy is, being surrounded by these beautiful, colorful butterflies here. There's one section of the story, not much artwork around it, but just as the Garden of the Gods. So it's kind of a relation to the creation of plant life as opposed to different animal lives here. We've got this picture here. We all know this one. It's Cupid. But I bet you probably don't read much about the bees on this bow. Let's see what it says. Eros, capricious messenger of love, was attacked by a bee concealed within a rose. Appealing to his mother Aphrodite to punish the flower that had caused him pain, he was satisfied when she attached the insect stingers to the flower stem. However, forever after, all roses were armed with thorns. Let's see. Heaven's Homesick Exiles. A story in places as far apart as Lithuania and Tierra del Fuego. I'm not going to read this one story here, but just a nice picture of his dandelions up in the wind, and apparently there's a story involved in that. Sorry, bye. Bequest of the Golden Stranger. See a man talking to this another man over his fire. In accordance to the customs of his people, a young Iroquois marked his coming of age by a period of fasting, prayer, and meditation in the forest. During his retreat, he encountered a strange cloth in green and crowned with golden feathers, who challenged him to tests of strength. Let's see. And here we have, there's two fighting in a test of strength here. Let's see. With straining sinews and flashing limbs, the youth and his visitors engaged in a furious wrestling match. Although he was faint from fasting, the boy's power surged up to take him a more than equal opponent. So apparently he was able to win. See a corn here where the caption says, "Green and golden plants shooting out of the earth change forever the lives of the people who had only known how to kill and forage for food." So I guess this may be a story relating to how the Iroquois found their ways to cultivate corn. And the last few pages here deals with a very popular myth of Noah's Ark. See the ark flying away when it starts to rain. Next few pages, I read this a long time ago, but just it's fascinating because you see woolly mammoth, you see griffin, and the unicorn. And apparently these are three of the animals that have missed the boat. We usually joke about animals missing the boat, but let's see. I'll read a small section of this that's related to this. In the lands they took their teachings from the Bible, Noah was a hero of the tale, but Europe's storytellers remembered incidents that never appeared in the scriptural account. They lamented the destruction of certain strange exotic species that never reached the safety of the ark, either because they lived in such remote places as they failed to hear Noah's summons, or because they were foolish and declined the invitation when they came. Thus the wondrous unicorn, that snowy horse-shaped creature with a horn on its brow, the redoubtable griffin, leonine and eagle-winged, and the shaggy-coated mastodon were lost for us all, for all time. Of course, and also in this story, when they talk about Noah's Ark, they talk about a incident where the devil, disguised as a rat, tried chewing a hole through it, which was later attacked by one of the cats. And of course, Noah's Ark, where after it all ends, the animals got out and repopulated the world. And that's the end of it. Bibliography and pictures, of course. And if any of you have questions, I've had a couple people in my first video talking about these books in general, talking about the artwork and all that. But now I'm just about got all the volumes here. I got one more in the mail as I make this. So if you're curious about any of the artwork in this, I could quickly look up the artist for you since it's all on the back of the book. So that's it. It's the Book of Beginnings. Thank you all for watching. You all have a nice day.